I'm Jimi Hendrick, and this episode is called Front Porch Fall in the series The Quest from Adversity to Success on Empower Your Pattern 2.0. Did you know that there are success patterns to help you receive more, to help you live a better and extraordinary life right now? Well, I'm Jimi Hendrick. I am a success, confidence, and thrive coach. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And if you come with me, I will show you these success patterns. Let's go. Now, as you can tell from the title, Front Porch Fall, this quest does not start with success. At the time, I guess it just started then. January 11, 2018. For the most part, I was riding pretty high. I was going to deliver a speech the following night at the Millen Centennial Library. And, well, something happened about 5 days before, the 6th of January. This began to be a sign of things to come. I was at my stake conference, and I was trying to assist putting up chairs. Well, I kind of lost in some ways, a small bit of my equilibrium. And the chair went right down on one of my toes. Yeah. Really hurt to walk on that thing. I come home, and my mother insists I show it to her. And she's like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "Mama, it'll be okay. It'll be okay." And a friend of mine who had taken me to the conference was like, he was studying to be a doctor, and he said, he said to my mama, look, it'll be okay. We just keep an eye on it for the next day. Okay, the next day I go to the conference and everything, and I come back home, and my mother takes one look at it, and it's just like, she took one look at, "Oh my God, Mama, what? This big knot. This big blue knot. Oh my God, we got to take an emergency room and get it lanced." I said, "Mama, calm down. Let me do some research first." We prop it up, we put it on nice and see what it gets. So we did that, for quite a few days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I thought it was okay, Thursday. I was excited about my speech. I thought everything was going to go well. Well, as it happened to be that night, my mother was sick. Really sick. Cause she told me she couldn't make it to the speech. I told her I understood. She sent me to my nephew's house. Back when they were living there, next door to my house. And I go there for dinner. I'm coming back from dinner, okay? I'm coming back from dinner. And the porch light was kind of dim as far as my view. I could have swore I had stepped onto the steps. I guess it's, the porch light being dim, being blind, not able to see. There was no moon, okay? I have some sight, and when there's a moon at night, I do pretty well in the dark, but there was no moon. I thought stepping onto the stairs when, you guessed it. Now, people in my family will debate to me about this. until Kingdom Come. But it felt like I fell off the porch. At first I thought, I felt nothing. I thought, okay, it'll be alright. But then when my nephew tried to lift me up, I noticed my leg was twisting. And so they got me a chair. I was sitting down. I was writhing in pain. Screaming at my poor nephew. They called 911. I had to call and cancel the speech. And I was rode on a stretcher gingerly and driven to Midland Memorial Hospital. And they gave me some IV medicine to try to calm the pain. It did it in some ways. And one thing I did that blew the paramedics away, I started singing to deal with the pain. Let me give you a few bars. I thought I could fly. I thought I could touch the sky. Now here I am, here today, being wheeled to the ER away. And one of the paramedics is like, excuse me, sir, how are you able to do that being in so much pain? I said, the singing detracts from the pain. He's like, wow. Never heard of it, the patient doing that. Okay, so I'm brought into the emergency room. My nephew and his wife and my great nephew show up at the hospital. Shoot, he was no more than 2 years old at the time. And I kind of worried about them, so I called for my friends to show up. And they did, and I told them, I said, look, y'all need to go home and get that baby in bed. And so a friend of mine, you've heard him on the show quite a while back. Bishop Dave. Anyway, he and another friend of mine, Adam, sat with me through, most of the night. They gave me a heavier painkiller called Dilaudid. Started prepping me in some ways for surgery the night before, with catheter and all that. That was pretty tough. So I'm in the hospital for about a week. Because it seemed like, a lot of things were going wrong. After this, now wait, back up to the surgery. Okay, back up to the surgery. So the morning of the surgery, I'm being wheeled into a surgical prep room. And Bishop Dave showed the surgeon my toe. It was on the same leg, the foot, that was broken. They had that toe problem. And Bishop Dave asked the surgeon, can you wrench it? Can you wrench it? He said, sir, I'm not going to touch that from a 10-foot pole. With his problems, he's already at risk for infection anyway. I don't want to make it worse. And what do you know? The next day, infection set in, and there was... I was poked and tested more than I can care to even think or imagine. And I remember the day before I was to be transferred to a... we're going to go ahead and call the nursing rehab facility Cameron Park, okay? To protect the guilty here. Anyway, I, the day before did they transfer me, I was undergoing a blood transfusion and didn't know it. Now, I have a rare blood disease, and I found out why they were doing some of these random blood tests. I found out when I transferred to Cameron Park. Apparently, the hospital thought I had low iron. That's not the case. I have what's known as Mediterranean anemia. But I digress. I arrived at the facility in the afternoon of the 18th. And you talk about culture shock. Food was horrible. I didn't really have that much access to my phone as of yet. But I would. Eventually I had nurses that were willing to work with me. And I was doing okay for the most part. But I'll tell you something, I never experienced anything like this. I went through another fall about a year later. We might cover that, but I learned a valuable lesson. Arrogance don't guarantee you or keep you successful. And it's just my view that the 6th through the 11th of January, I was kind of full of pride. And I think it took Heavenly Father kind of knocking me down a peg or two. I needed to be knocked down a peg or two. Now, at first, the powers that be at Cameron Park were kind of dragging their feet, not doing anything about it. Well, my mother was about to raise Cain. But I had a treatment nurse one day that finally did. For the sake of, protecting, you know what I mean, we're going to call her Mickey. Mickey saw that it was time for the stitches to go out. So she goes down to the nurse's station, and whoo! I could hear her talking. James Hendrick needs to see his surgeon ASAP. A couple of days later, I went to see him. Now, this shows how rotten Cameron Park was. They had to set me up with some other transportation deal because, well, what can I say? Maybe laziness. And I didn't know what was going on. Cameron Park wasn't communicating all that well, and it was just humiliating, just sitting there in the chair for the longest time. But finally, somebody in that surgeon's office called and raised Cain with Cameron Park, and Cameron Park got transit to come get me pretty fast. Now, I remember that day. I liked that driver who worked with me. He was a black guy. He gingerly loaded me on the truck and fastened me real good. And I discovered he was listening to Christian radio. And he said, "Do you mind if I listen to Christian radio?" I said, "No. I don't mind at all. I love listening to Christian radio." He was listening to some preaching. I take it he was, an evangelical Protestant. And being a former one myself, of course, I still got a little bit of old Baptist boy leanings. I really enjoyed that. It was a comfort to me at that time. And the surgeon had finally sent letters to Cameron Park saying, "Hey, get off your duff and get this man some physical therapy."